Hey, welcome to Gathering 208. If you are in one of our communities in South Dakota or here in the Treasure Valley, welcome. We're excited to have you, but wherever you're at, wherever you're watching this, glad you are making the time to be here. And actually here, if you are local here in the Boise area, we have an exciting opportunity coming up for a part of our Love Local. We are going to be serving on January 30th with the Idaho Food Bank, packing food that goes out into the community just to make sure that everyone stays fed, which is an important thing in just the time of life that we find ourselves in. So that's coming up on January 3rd. We're going to have a couple time slots available. We don't have confirmation on what those are, but be paying attention to our social media and we'll make sure that you know that information as soon as we do. A couple things that you should note though, our group sizes for each shift are going to be limited to 10 or less people, just in accordance with some of the county health mandates. Also, kids are welcome to help serve, and I believe they have to just be over the age of, it's something like 6 or 7, and have a parental kind of permission slip from you guys. So we'd love to have you join us on Saturday, January 3rd for Love Local with the food pantry, or the food bank. We're incredibly excited about that. And actually, today we are diving into week 2 of this series, Bucket List, and you're going to hear from Lonnie Nelson. This is the first time that he is sharing the Word of God with us, and so excited to get to hear him do that and to share that with all of you.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome. My name is Lonnie Nelson, and we are officially in week 2 of 2021, which means we're in week 2 of our Bucket List series that Pastor Josh kicked off for us last week. Last week, Josh reminded us that unfortunately our time on this earth is going to come to an end. We're not going to be here forever, but there is purpose and importance to us having a bucket list while we are on this earth. Because having a bucket list allows us to make the most of each and every day while we're here, and for us to live with intentionality. And that when we delight in God, the desires of our heart match the design of God's heart. And I think it's safe to say 2020 was a really tough year for a lot of reasons. We're not going to get into those reasons, but 2020 looked different than any of us could have ever imagined or expected it to. But I think if each of us look down, think deep, some of us might have to, look a little deeper than others, but I think we can find at least one thing that was kind of a blessing in disguise that could have been provided from 2020, or something that, what was a positive that came out of this last year. For me, since March of 2020, I started working from home, which has been, honestly, it's been great. I've been able to spend more time with my wife Jordan and my 2-year-old Leland, and I've been able to be working at my desk in my bedroom, and on like a Monday or Tuesday where I would normally be at the office, I'd hear behind me my son, and the first things he'd say in the morning are, "Good morning, Daddy." And this is something that I've never experienced at that time on a weekday because I was normally at the office. And so just being able to spend more time with my family and really invest in my son's life and just kind of be more present there has been a huge blessing that, came from, unfortunately, 2020. But since then, it's just been a huge blessing to be able to have this more time with my family. And because of that, I love to take pictures, and because I'm at home more, my phone is just totally full. I have a big iPhone, storage, but that doesn't stop my phone is full right now. I can take a picture if I wanted to. And honestly, that would have been full even if I was at the office, but it would have taken a lot longer. But I love taking pictures and videos of my son, and I think this comes from when I was young. When I was 10 years old, I got one of those for Christmas. I got one of those big Sony Handycam video cameras, the ones with the cassette tapes. And ever since I was a kid, I've been obsessed with taking pictures and videos of everything. And my brothers used to make fun of me because we would have pictures of like random food that I'm eating, or I remember a picture in my head. My uncle was barbecuing in the backyard or something. I don't remember the event, but I remember the picture, and I just have a picture of the grill, and it's kebabs of some sort. And I don't know why. I don't know what. I just have so many random pictures and random videos that I can't part with. But I'm so thankful for that kind of obsession. I mean, I'm still obsessed with pictures and videos and things like that. But I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful for this obsession of being with pictures and videos, because I love watching old videos back, and I love looking through old like photo albums and things like that, and remembering events that I may have forgotten, or times that we spent with loved ones who had, have passed away. And maybe you're like that too. Maybe you have, one of those big video cameras, or even bigger if you're older than me. You have one of those big shoulder mount ones that have the cassette tapes maybe stashed under your bed or something, and you just can't part with it because you don't know if you've transferred all those cassettes over to DVDs or whatever. Or maybe you have a stack of laptops or old phones in a drawer that you just can't part with for some reason. And the reason is because we don't know, maybe there's something in those laptops or those phones or those cassettes that we haven't transferred over, we haven't backed up, and we don't want to miss it. Because when we watch these videos back, or we look through old photo albums, we get overcome with a sense of clarity of what really matters. More than what's going on in our life, more than the power bill that's due, more than a fight we had with someone, more than a test coming up or an interview. I'm not saying those aren't important. Pay your power bill, study for your test. Those are definitely important. I'm not discouraging those. But we get a sense of clarity when we remember these things and we watch these videos, that it's people in the end that really matter. I'm going to say it again. It's people in the end that really matter. We're going to continue talking about this idea of a bucket list, a list of things that we want to do before we kick the bucket. And I want to encourage you to take some time this week, write some things down, start your bucket list, your life list, your goals list, whatever it is you want to call it. But basically answer this question: what do you want to do, or what do you want to accomplish before you die? Take some time, pray about it. It's not something that can be done in an hour. It's a process, but it has incredible benefits and importance. And as we continue this journey this week, we're gonna look at the Bible. We're gonna look at some experiences. We're gonna look at some resources to really explore ways that we can minimize regret in our life, because we can't get rid of regret. Unfortunately, we have to be honest with ourselves. We're gonna have regret. We all have those times where I should have said this, should have done that, I could have made the situation better. I could have led with love more in this situation. We're gonna live with regret, but there are definitely ways that we can minimize it in our life, and that's with these habits we're gonna discuss, we're gonna talk about, we're gonna unpack. So I want to bring in a resource from a woman named Bronnie Ware. Bronnie was a woman who worked in healthcare. She worked with people who are in the last 3 to 12 years of their life. So she worked with hundreds of patients who are in the final days of their life, and she had hundreds of conversations with these people, and the theme of regrets and the idea of regrets came up more than any other subject that she talked about with her patients. So what did she do? She wrote a book. Bronnie wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. She took everything that she talked about with all of her patients over the however many years she was in this practice, and she combined them all and kind of clumped them into 5 top regrets of the dying. And it all kind of comes down to this end goal. And the end goal is from 2 Timothy chapter 4, starting at verse 6. And the Apostle Paul reads, "As for me, my life has already been poured out as an offering to God. The time of my death is near. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have remained faithful. And now the prize awaits me." Now we know Paul. Paul has made mistakes. Paul persecuted Christians. Paul had a crazy life. But in the end, he had been freed by the power of God and he's able to say, I have been faithful. That doesn't sound like a life of regret. That sounds like hope. That sounds like purpose. And that's the end goal, to get to the end of our life and to, like Paul, be able to say, I have fought the good fight. I have kept the faith. I have remained faithful with what God has put with my hands and in my life. And now the prize awaits me. So the first step to minimize regret we learned from Paul, number one, is to learn to live in your identity. One of the top 5 regrets of the dying is, I wish I had been more true to myself. People express that they spent most of their life trying to live up to expectations of maybe their spouse or their friends or their neighbors or whatever. And I have this weird thing where I put expectations on myself, imaginary expectations on myself from people I've never even met. Someone I've never even met magically has expectations of me that I'm not living up to. And I know that's crazy, but that's just something I do. And so we need to learn to live in our identity and not focus on what other people are thinking. And I want to take that a little bit further. Not only do we want to be true to ourselves and not focus on what other people are thinking and expecting from us, but I want us to get to the end of our lives and say, I've been true to myself, but more importantly, I've been true to God. I've used my gifts that He has given me to glorify His kingdom. No matter what you're going through in life, life could be horrible right now, life could be great right now. Either way, we are God's child. And we are placed on this earth to use the gifts that He has given us in order to glorify His kingdom, and to expand and share His love with everyone we come in contact with. You're God's kid. You're God's child. It is our job to live in that identity, accept what He has planted in our lives and in our hands, and use it and live to glorify God's kingdom. Not only true to ourselves, but true to God and the purpose that He has for us. And so we're talking about being one of God's children. And I think back to my son. Like I said, he's 2, and he's in the defiant age of his life where you tell him to do something, he does it just kind of like you asked him to do it, or you tell him to put his toy down and instead he throws it across the room. Technically, he did what you said, but it wasn't in the way that you expected it to. And honestly, that's a little thing, but there's honestly nothing that Leland could ever do that would make me not love him. My love as a father for Leland is based on his birth. He's born, he is my son, I am his father, I'm going to love him forever. We get that love from our Father. That's His love for us, for you, for me. But with God, it's a little different. With God, it's not, His love for us isn't based on us being born, necessarily just being born. It's based on us being born again and adopting that identity, not adopting, but accepting that identity that we have become, that we are God's children. No matter what we do, we mess up. We feel like we're not worthy because we're not worthy. None of us are worthy. But God is a good God and He loves us. And when we go off the rails or we mess up, He's going to lovingly guide us back and He's going to walk alongside us. In Matthew 3, verse 16 to 17, it reads this. After His baptism, being Jesus' baptism, after His baptism, as Jesus came out of the water, the heavens were opened. He saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and settling on Him. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my dearly loved Son who brings me joy." This is my dearly loved Son who brings me joy. Dearly loved could literally be translated as beloved. This is my beloved Son. This is God speaking at Jesus' baptism, before Jesus taught any of His teachings, His lessons, before any of the miracles He did, before He gave His life. Jesus didn't earn God's love. He already had God's love. And because He already had that love, the love of God became the platform in which He did everything that He did. And what's true in Jesus is true in us. The early followers of Jesus used to actually greet each other with the same word that God spoke at Jesus' baptism, beloved. Beloved is translated as brothers and sisters. It's the same word, my beloved, meaning we share the same identity. That was their way of saying, we are all the same. We're in this together. We are God's kids. We have the same Father. It doesn't matter your race, your background, your financial status, what's going on in your life. We all have the same Father. That is what matters. Our identity is the same. We are children of the one true God. What matters is we have the same Father, and He loves us, and He has called us together in Him. So we are beloved. And this is so important. I'm going to say it again. I'm a broken record. We are beloved. Why this is important? Because once we get that identity of being God's child, being God's beloved, our identity in the love of God, out of that love becomes the platform of which we do everything that we do. You want to obey God more, not to earn His approval, but because we are already loved by Him. You want to please Him more, not to manipulate God, but because we are already so thankful for everything that He has done and is doing and will do in our life. I say it, so now you say, I get it. We want to accept His identity, but I want to talk about why it's important. When this is our identity and we focus on being God's beloved kid, everything else falls to the wayside. That becomes our priority. And as people of faith, we once we accept this, we are no longer caught up in the game of trying to please everybody else, because we are living in a truer, deeper relationship with the only true God that matters. And the beautiful thing about this is because we are no longer trying to live up to the expectations of others. We're no longer trying to impress them, but with God's love as our platform, we are now able to invest in them. I'm going to say that again. You're no longer trying to impress your neighbor, but with God's love as your platform, you are able to invest in your neighbor. The number 2 way to minimize regret in our life is to prioritize life and work. Another big regret of the dying was they wish I hadn't worked so much. Now, work's not bad, money's not bad, but the idea of the dying was they had a sense of regret that when they made money a primary factor that drove so much of what they did, and the decisions that they made in their life, they had neglected their family, and they neglected things that were truly important. And it reminds me of the stories of the people who spend their entire life saving up for retirement, that they get to that initial date where they're supposed to retire, but they keep working, and then they get to a point where they're unable to actually enjoy their retirement. Ecclesiastes 5 reads, "Those who love money will never have enough. How meaningless to think that wealth brings true happiness." Now, there's nothing wrong with money. I hope you make a lot of it. Maybe it's on your bucket list. Maybe you wrote down, I want to make $1 million. I hope you do. I want to make $1 million. Just don't lose a priority of what's most important as you're going after these goals. To reiterate in the beginning, or what I said in the beginning, in the end, it's people that matters most. You can be replaced in your job. You can be replaced in your hobby. You can be replaced in almost every facet of your life. But you are the only you in the life of your family. You're the only Josh Wiley. You're the only Kellen Hackett. You're the only Kathy Hackett. You're the only Lonnie Nelson in your family. That's forever. And that's something that needs to be prioritized. The third way to minimize regret in our life is to express your feelings more. It's important. Another huge regret of the dying was I wish I had been more open with people. I wish I had meetings of reconciliation. I wish I had made things right. I wish I had told this person that I loved them and I cared about them and made sure that they knew how I felt before they passed away. John 15:12, this is my commandment. Love each other the same way that I have loved you. Love the way Jesus loved. Show kindness, compassion. Say words like, I'm sorry, I love you, will you forgive me? Can we start over? It's these simple words and simple phrases that really express our feelings and offer peace within our relationships with ourselves and with other people. It's not up to us to make everything right. We can't control other people, but it is up to us to do everything in our power to make sure that we have provided an out of sense of peace in our relationship. A sense of peace in our heart and potentially somebody else's heart. Along with those, with that principle, the fourth principle and way to minimize regret is to keep in touch with your friends. People, as they got to the end of their life, a big regret that they had is they wish that they had kept in touch with old friends. And this one kind of hits home for me. I have a friend, his name's Dylan, and he's one of my oldest friends. He's one of my best friends, and he's a real friend. He's one of those friends that knows more about me than I know about me, more about me than my mom knows about me, the good, the bad, the ugly. I remember when we were kids, we would walk around our neighborhood almost every single night for hours and just talk about what our lives are going to look like, things we're going to accomplish. Literally every week after week, we did this for years. He knows me more than I know about myself. And he moved away. He started his family. I started my family, things that we hadn't talked for a long time. We recently got back together and we hung out, and man, it was like we didn't even skip a beat. It was like there was no time that had passed. And now I had put it on my bucket list as I'm preparing this, this sermon. On my bucket list is to make sure that I am spending more time and investing in my relationship with Dylan, because in the end, it's people that matter most. Make an effort to invest in the lives of people God has placed in your life. Don't let distant friendships be one of the regrets you have at the end of your life. Same thing with the third the third one we talked about. Make sure that the relationships you have with people are prioritized and that you're strengthening your friendships and your relationships with people as we go through this life together. The fifth and final principle to minimize regret in our life is to choose the habits of happiness. I think back to my workplace or workplaces I've had in the past. You have three types of people. You have the Eeyore of the group, well, today's going to be a terrible day. You have those people, and that's okay. They're great people, but they're maybe not the biggest joy to be around. Or you have the Tiggers, that everything's great, everything's wonderful. There's this one guy that I think of, I'm not going to say his name, but he's the happiest person I've ever met, almost to the point where I can only stand maybe 5 or 10 seconds around him before I kind of start to get annoyed. And it's nothing against him, it's a little much, but that's great. I love that he is so happy. And me, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm just kind of doing my work, living my life, just kind of, in the middle. I'm not overly happy. I'm not depressed or anything, but I'm kind of in the middle. And research goes to say that 50% of our happiness comes from that set point. Either you're an Eeyore, you're a Tigger, or you're somewhere in the middle, like a Winnie the Pooh. Like I'm Winnie the Pooh. I'm right in the middle. Living life, enjoying life. I'm not an Eeyore, I'm not a Tigger. I'm just right there. 50% of our happiness comes from that set point. And a lot of us think, oh, if I can just get that promotion, or if I can start living my dream, if I can do all these things, if I can complete my bucket list, I'm going to be happy. That's not necessarily true, because research shows that, you have the 50% of your set, which is your set point, and then only 10% of our happiness comes from what happens in our life. Only 10% comes from what happens, comes from circumstances in our life. And that leaves 40%. Research shows that 40% we get to choose. We have direct control over the habits and the attitudes that we choose. And that is what contributes to our happiness. We see these habits in Philippians 4:6. It reads, "Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all that He has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus." We're going to break that down a little bit. Habit number 1, don't worry. Habit number 2, pray about it. Number 3, tell God what you need. 4, thank Him. Engage in gratitude. 5, acknowledge that all is good, that God is good, and do this daily. And then you will daily, week after week, morning, night. If you do this, we will arrive at the end result. And the end result is this. You will experience God's peace. And God's peace will guard your heart and your minds as you live in Christ Jesus. Don't worry, pray, tell God what you need, thank Him, and you will experience God's peace. Life is hard at times, but if you engage in these habits of not worrying, praying, thanking Him, God's peace will fill us and it will be our guard. With all these simple ways of minimizing regret, living in our identity, prioritizing what's important over work and money, expressing our feelings, keeping in touch with friends, and choosing the habits of happiness, we can eliminate tomorrow's regret with today's faithfulness. I'm going to say that one more time. With all of these simple ways and simple principles to minimize regret, we can eliminate tomorrow's regret with today's faithfulness. Will you pray with me? God, I thank you for your love and your guidance and what you have placed on our hearts with the roadmap that you have given us to expand your kingdom, glorify your kingdom, and live our lives without regret. That we can focus on what is important, that we can invest in the people around us, that we can truly pour into the lives of everyone we come in contact with your love as our platform of what we do. That we can truly bring glory to your kingdom. God, I thank you for who you are and what you are doing in our lives. And I thank you for the opportunity for us to be in your presence and to walk closer with you each and every single day. God, we love you, we thank you, and we praise you. In your name, amen.
You know, those 5 habits of happiness are incredibly powerful. And so I hope you wrote them down. If you missed it, go back to that spot, rewatch it, make note of it, because when we can integrate those things into our lives each and every day, it has just the power to transform the way that we go about our lives, the things that we find important, and ultimately how we live our life and how we accomplish our bucket lists. But we've got some discussion questions up in the description of this video, and so you can click on the link for that discussion guide. There's some questions in there. There's also some other verses that you can read throughout the week that just kind of talk about this idea of living intentionally. But we're so glad that you were with us this week. If you call Gathering 208 your home, and this is just part of your life, you know, we appreciate your support. And if you want to know how to support us, you can go to gathering208.com/give. And you can find out more there, but join us next week for week 3 of Bucket List.